Do you believe in boysenberries? Get ready for the smallest, wildest theme park in the West. Knott's Berry Farm. You will believe in large crowds.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Reek, amusement park enthusiast, video gamer, cat lover, dank memer, and now 100% extremely hypocrite motherfucker amusement park YouTuber. And today, we are focusing on our little park in Southern California known as Knott's Berry Farm, as the first park to review.
Or is it a farm?
Knott's Berry Farm. Or should I say, not so much of a berry farm, because this theme park currently has nothing to do with berry farms outside of some small plantations inside the park. Anyways, Knott started in 1920 as a berry farm. Oh, sorry for speaking too early. Now I have to be slapped senseless by the only guy I know. Brother!
Yes, what do you want, scrub?
Slap me across the face. I've made a mistake.
Sorry bro, slapping machine broke.
Oh, come on! But... fine, whatever. With what you and your broken ass has to say. Back on topic! The berry farm became famous due to a new hybrid berry named the Boysenberry. And in 1940, the park went from a berry farm, berry shop, fried chicken restaurant, and some other shops to the start of a theme park. It all started with a replica ghost town simply named Ghost Town, which went on to 3 more major themed areas, which were the Fiesta Village, the Roaring Twenties, now named the Boardwalk, and Camp Snoopy. Knott's Berry Farm was once independently owned by the Knott family until 1997 when the park was sold off to none other than Cedar Fair. What, was Hershey too good for this park? Anyway, with their ownership, this is actually the only theme park in the Cedar Fair chain, with a whole bunch of theming around every corner instead of a whole bunch of rides unlike every other park they own. Although with Cedar Fair's ownership, the park's newer history became a bit controversial, with ride removals, steel eyesores, and many other ways of pushing the Knott's Berry Farm nostalgia down the drain of Windjammer's scrap metal. And I'm actually fine with this. Say what? Yes, a good chunk of the park's nostalgia is gone, but change is change, and sometimes it's for the better. The changes that this park underwent got the park from being a mostly family and semi-thrill park to a semi-family and semi-thrill park, which is right between the demographics of the family friendliness of Disney and the high-octane thrills of Magic Mountain, which is good. There are many people who will turn down a visit to the latter due to how ultimately extreme the park is, and there are people who will steer away from the former because all of the atmosphere, pricing, and screaming children may seem like a bit too much. Knott's has the perfect mix of the demographics, but I'll go into more detail later on, although for now, it's time to actually start talking about the park itself. Knott's Berry Farm is located in Buena Park, California, which is a 5 to 10 minute walk from Anaheim and a 5 to 10 minute drive from Los Angeles. This small little city has a long line of entertainment, and Knott's is right at the tail end of the road.
After some interesting parking, you then take an extensive walk up to the main entrance, and let me tell ya,
going up to the main entrance is a great first impression. Not only is it the good old Knott's entrance gates, but it's also the large steel thrill ride right behind it that makes a great impression between the classic and modern theme park feel. Once in the park, convenience immediately comes into play, as when you enter, you have a choice between 3 pathways. One takes you to the right side of the park, another takes you to the left side of the park, and another takes you straight to the back of the park. I'd have to say that the park layout is good. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely acceptable with a slightly below average park size and the occasional shortcuts. And no matter where you go, the park shows off its great atmosphere. For the most part. This is the best themed park in the Cedar Fair chain, and it's always bound to be until the chain lets them go. There's theming to go around at every area of the park, whether it's the Old West, the Beachside Boardwalk, dudes, wah 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 wah, and even Gran Mexico! Overall, the theming here is good, or in other words, great for Cedar Fair standards. My favorite area in this park is, with no surprise, the Ghost Town. It's just really well themed, and it has a great mix of shops, restaurants, galleries, and a few rides here and there. My second favorite area is the boardwalk. Theming may not be as great, but this area has my favorite selection of rides in the park, which I'll talk about later. Camp Snoopy is surprisingly my third favorite area. Why, you may ask? Well, it's just beautiful. It definitely has the best landscaping and scenery in the park. Plus, there's a good variety of kiddie rides and a few family rides to be thrown in. Lastly, we have Fiesta Village. It's the only area in the park that hasn't received any major overhauls in the past 5 years. But is this area bad? Of course not. Every area in this park is good, and Fiesta Village is no exception, even if it looks pretty dated compared to the rest of the park. Like I've said before, this park has a great atmosphere, although only for the most part.
The theming is definitely there throughout, but what about on the rides? Or at least the ride queues and stations? Well, it's sometimes not that great. There are many rides here that have decent or even great theming, more specifically the Calico Mine Ride and Timber Mountain Log Ride. Both these rides offer the best theming in the park and are possibly the best rides in the park. Yeah, you heard me say it. Although some rides, on the other hand, contain little to no theming at all, more preferably the coasters. Yeah, there are some coasters here that are a bit themed, even some decently themed, but Knott's hit it all the way to the bottom for many of them, including rides like Silver Bullet, where it's just a sign and nothing else. They also should have painted the rides silver while they're at it. Now I know what you're thinking. I've talked through extensive lengths about this park, and you're probably saying things like, "This review is boring, he's not talking about the rides, coaster power for everyone." Well, I'm glad you've asked now, little sport, because it's time to get into detail with the rides. Knott's Berry Farm has a total of 40 rides, and in the area of Southern California, amusement and theme parks alike would have a lot more family and kiddie rides over thrill rides, or even the opposite for some others. But Knott's keeps a near perfect balance, with a load of family rides and some thrill rides to overshadow the park. It's like having a bowl of chocolate and vanilla ice cream, but with a lot more vanilla plus a mass liking towards chocolate. It basically tastes like the same amount. Unless you're lactose intolerant like me, then your life is ruined. Just kidding, you can find your way around. The park has 10 roller coasters, 3 thrill rides, 10 family rides, 11 kiddie rides, 2 water rides, 2 dark rides, a train ride, and even a stagecoach ride. It's great to have this variety of rides crammed into what would have been a small park. But how are the quality of the rides? Well, you can't find out now because I'm making separate videos on those rides. Ha 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 ha. Now with this type of ride collection, with this type of atmosphere, the park is already great. But it's not like there's a lot more to this park. Oh, there is more, alright. Let's talk about the shows. Knott's has a good variety of shows, ranging from your usual musical, a dramatic show filled with special effects, a comedy show, a stunt show, and more. I haven't seen much of the shows in this park. Actually, I've only seen 2 shows, the stunt show and this band show on the stunt show stage, and they're actually pretty good. It's overall fun for the whole family, and it's a good way to take a break from the coaster riding and the path walking. On the topic of taking a break, what about the food here? After all, this is a theme park, so the food must be great, right? Kinda. Kinda? Does that mean the food is not great? No, that means that a good amount of the food in the park is great, but there are some lower gaps in the food quality. Now this is the part where you'd be thinking that some of the food here is bad, and you'd be wrong. I think basic is more of what you're looking for here. But enough with the lower quality, let's talk about the tasty highlights. Knott's is all about boysenberry and lots of it. Boysenberry Punch, Boysenberry Icy, Boysenberry Pie, all of the Boysenberry Festival! This park is obsessed with boysenberry food items, and they have made damn sure that the quality is this great. And best of all, people can buy Knott's jam and cookies anywhere, so everyone can have a taste of Knott's no matter where. You get boysenberry snacks, you get boysenberry snacks, everyone gets boysenberry snacks, by God, King! In addition, there are other good eats at Knott's that serve barbecue, Mexican food, unique fries, and my personal favorite, fried chicken. Mrs. Knott's Chicken Dinner Restaurant is definitely the best place to eat in this park. Oh, sorry, did I say in this park? Because that's not the case for some of the places here. Meet the California Marketplace, an area just outside of the park home to all of the park's main shops, eats, and other goods at your convenience. And Mrs. Knott's Chicken Dinner is the main highlight here. The restaurant has some of the best food to have in any theme park. But it's not in the park! You shut your mouth while I'm talking, thank you very much. I mean, it's hard to compete and win over parks like Epcot and Dollywood, but I'd be glad to put this restaurant up there with most of Knoebels' counter service dining. I, along with the park, want everyone to have a taste of Mrs. Knott's at least once per visit. That's what she said. Exactly, that is what she... Wait a second. If I have to find the biggest flaw in the food though, it has to be the pricing. Just look at this. It's at least $5 for a single item with an additional $8 to get a meal. That is at least $13 for an entire meal, and that is before inflation. There are many parks with pricey food, but the prices here are just ridiculous. But speaking of ridiculous, check out some of the operations here. This park can have some pretty bland operations. Some ride operations are pretty messy, but many operations are pretty decent. But what's not decent is the park size. I mean, it's not bad or anything, until you realize that this is one of the most popular parks in the world. Holy shit! Just look at it this way. One of the smaller looking parks owned by Cedar Fair is the most visited park in the entire chain, meaning that Disneyland has a competitor for the most overcrowded park in some of its high days, or in other words, most Saturdays of the year. Remember fellas, never plan a Saturday trip to a park ever. Unless it's your one and only option. Who am I kidding? Don't do it. So what else is there in this park? Nothing much really. The amount of shopping in this park is good, especially in Ghost Town in the California Marketplace. The staff here is friendly, and may have your typical and sometimes trashy LA locals, and to top it all off, they have some great looking annual events. I've already mentioned the Boysenberry Festival earlier, although I haven't mentioned how f***ing amazing everything looks there. The festival is definitely on my bucket list for things to do in a theme park, mainly because I've done the Food and Wine Festival at Epcot and loved it. There's also Knott's Scary Farm, one of the most popular Halloween events in a theme park, yet another event on my bucket list. Finally, there's Knott's Merry Farm, a holiday event that looks great, even if the crowds may be some of the worst in the year. And that's all that has to be talked about for this park, so to top off this review, it's time to go through a final verdict. This is definitely one of the better parks in Southern California. Heck, I think this park is second to Disneyland. The rides are great, the atmosphere is great, some of the food is great, it's easy to get to, the Catawampus is the best thing about this park. I want to grab some Boysenberry cookies, and where the hell do I get Jeff Tucker's shiny jacket? Overall, this park is great, and I definitely recommend doing a full day at this park. And with all that said, Knott's Berry Farm receives 8 out of 10. I was contemplating a 7, but the more I thought about my experiences at this park, the better the score I would give it. But I don't know, maybe I was thinking of a 7 because I'm so spoiled from going to this park so much for the past decade or so. Anyways, thank you for watching my first ever park review. If you want any advice for this park, don't be afraid to ask in the comments below, as I'll be sure to answer. And if you like the video, remember to like it, share it, subscribe it, and if you really love it, smother your face in it. Stay tuned for more content from SingleRiderReak, and have a thrilling rest of the day.